So till this point, in the last 18 episodes, what we have seen is like basics of Apex, what is like lightning component, lightning web component, basics of classes, trigger, what are the best practices around trigger, test classes, and everything. When we talk about coding in Salesforce at high level, there are two type of coding, two type of Apex execution mode basically. One is synchronous Apex and one is asynchronous Apex. So the example of synchronous Apex is you have a lightning component, or let's say you have a Visual Force page, and behind the scene we have a controller which executes instantly, which is asynchronous. Trigger is synchronous. Basically what is happening is whenever there is any DML operation on any object or any record, triggers would be executing instantly. However, in terms of asynchronous, and again, before doing that, in asynchronous Apex, there are like lower limits, like you can do 100 SQL queries, 10 second is a CPU time limit error and a CPU time limit basically. If we talk about asynchronous, sometimes there are huge jobs which can be executed behind the scene. We don't know. We don't really care on the UI. So for an example, nightly job. So let's say there is a nightly integration or nightly, let's say we have to go to all account and update few information at account. So those jobs really don't need to be run exactly at the same time, or it does not need any manual user action. It can be run in the background. So if we are talking about asynchronous, there are like couple of types like future, Amit covered in the last session. Then there is a queuable, and there is a batch Apex, there is a scheduler. And if you wanted to see where the jobs are there, asynchronous job are there, all you have to do is go to admin setup menu. Let me switch to Lightning interface. And if I go on the Lightning interface, if I go on setup, let me open my developer console as well. So if I go on setup and if I search for job, what basically we will see is we will see the list of all asynchronous Apex. If you see, there are like some queuable demo, mixed DML, Amit covered on the last session. And if you see, these are the status, like what happened, they completed, let's say they failed. If you go on the Apex Flex Queue job, so Apex Flex Queue job basically says that you can submit 100 batch Apex at the same time. Okay, and I will cover a little bit about that as well. So first of all, let me give you some example what I'm trying to do. So what I will do is, let's say I have an account. Let me see how many account I have in my system. Let's say my account, I have around 37 or something. And let's say account site field is empty. I will go to the edit object. And if you go on fields, if you see the account site is empty. What we can have is, let's write a scheduler. So if you are coming from the other programming language background, scheduler is kind of the cron job, background job, and you can run some piece of code on predefined intervals. So you can say, okay, run this Apex every 1 hour or run this Apex every hour. In order to do that, what we have to do is we have to create a class saying scheduler. Let's say scheduler demo is Apex class name. And this class is going to do update all. This is not really a good example, but just to show you the capability, basically what it does. So I will say update all accounts site by, let's say, value coming from external system. Just an example, if we say external system, it's the API, but for demo purpose, hard code it as, let's say, a warehouse, something like that. So what I will do is, if you want to inform Salesforce that, okay, this class is a scheduler which can be executed automatically, you don't need any interaction. All we have to do here is we have to say implements schedulable and then public void execute. So if you say any class as a scheduler, and if you try to save this, if you want to check on the problem, it will say that, okay, if you, so like we covered in, I guess, second or third episode, right? What exactly is the interface? So interface in Apex, make sure that you are not writing any Apex code wrong or invalid Apex code accidentally. So in this case, you're saying class implement schedulable. You would be able to compile this class only if you resolve this method, and this method is saying that, okay, you need to have a public void method of name here. If you can see my bottom here on my developer console, execute, and then we are saying schedulable context. So that's it. And right now, it is my timing, it's 9:03. Okay, so what I will do is cron job maker. So what I'm trying to do, so in my clock, it's a 9:03 p.m. Let's run this code after 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and I will simply say list of account. Let's say LST account, like wrong account. So what I just did is I am fetching all the account from database. I'm going to have a for loop here, and in this for loop, all I'm going to say is site field a dot site equals to, let's say, simple warehouse. And I'm simply going to insert, update list amount. So that's a very simple example of scheduler Apex in Salesforce. Apex scheduler. Let me see, I think there is some spelling mistake here. Context. So as you can see, there is no compiler error. Now what is going to happen is, whenever Salesforce will automatically execute this class, always execute method would be executed. It will fetch an account info. It will get all the account from the database. It will update their site information and simply update the account. If I go on cron maker, current time is 9:05. Let's assume I want to execute every hour, and let's say it should start at 9. In fact, what is current time here? Yeah. So around, let's say, if I say every 1 hour. So this is how, so if you click on the generate expression, this is how it will automatically give you the cron format. That, okay, this is the format that, okay, this job has to run every hour. You can specifically say that what would be the hour. And let's say we have simply, even if we run like that, So if I say 21, what is current time? 6. So let's say I want to run 21.9, generate cron job. So it still says, okay, here. So it says it's going to run at 9 p.m. All we have to do now is schedule it. So in order to schedule, I will copy this. I will go in my developer console. I will press Control E and I will say string schedule expression. I will say, let's say cron equals to this. And then our class name is scheduler demo. I will say obj equals to new scheduler demo. Then all we have to do is we have to say system dot schedule, and then we have to give the job name. I will say path to code scheduler. Then we have to give the instance. So obj is our class instance in the background. So if you want to use class, we have to use the keyword new. That's what we use on line number 2. So when we say obj equals to, so scheduler demo is just a class, just like a blueprint. It will not do anything until we use a new keyword. So using new keyword, I instantiated it. And then I'm saying it should run every this time. So cron time I said. Let's validate again what is the current time here. It's a 9:08 already. We should hurry. So I will say execute. Method does not execute. Okay, I interchanged the parameter. So cron expression should be second and obj should be last. I did it. So let's go on Salesforce setting, search for job. If you go on the schedule job now, what you would see here is it says our job name, which is what we just did. If I go back here on Control E, our job name is path to code scheduler. And then it says that it's submitted at 9:08. Next run is going to happen at 9:09, which is in some time, almost there. And if we go back in our Apex job queue, here it will appear job, it's queued. So let's keep refreshing. So once the job is successful, what it is going to do is it is going to update all these accounts site by the warehouse which we said. So so basically what we did, we have written an Apex code which will run in background on the time which we decide without any manual intervention. It was very easy. All we have to do is write an Apex class which implements an interface scheduler, schedulable, which will have, you have to create execute method. Whatever is written in this execute method will get executed every time. It's up to us how do we want to schedule it. I used a website saying cronemaker.com. I entered all my value that, okay, my job should start at 21:09 every day. It generated a cron statement. And it will even give you the hint that, okay, it's running on Thursday. Now it will be Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You can have all permutation combination. All we need is this string, cron format string. So I copied this cron format string saying the cron statement, and I have passed it as a second parameter in the schedule method. That's all. So if I go back here and let me reload it, it still says queue 6:08. Let me go on the schedule jobs again. It says it was okay. Actually, my time zone here is different. Let me see what is my time zone. So if I go on path to code, my time zone is actually Pacific. That was the problem. So let me change it to Eastern. Where is my Eastern Standard? That's what it shows. On scheduler page again. Now if okay, I'm still 1 hour back, but that's okay. Now it is showing completely different time. So what we can do is basically, let me try to delete it. We will schedule it again. So this is a one way to schedule, which I just show using this one. Another way to do it is go on class, Apex classes. You see the button here which says schedule Apex. And here we can say path to code demo. And this is only class is appearing because this is the only class which implements that interface schedulable. And then I'm saying, okay, every week run it on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, every day. And I'm saying, okay, this should end maybe in 2022, it's up to me. And then preferred start time, as you can see, this is the only options available. So this is the one of the drawback of using the user interface. So let's say if I want to run my job at 9:13 p.m., 9:13 would not appear here. That is the problem. So that is the reason I would not be using this one. But this is just one way to do it. So what we will do is we will go back again on Chrome Maker, and let's say we are going to run at 20, which is 8, and current time is 9:13. So I will say let's run at 8:15. I will generate expression again. Again, I will copy this statement. I will go in the developer console. I will simply paste it here. It's a Chrome statement, standard, not really specific to Salesforce. And let's try to execute again. Now, if I go back again on schedule job, so if you see that I have submitted it 8:14, which is still not my current time zone, and it would be run in the 1 minute, which is 8:15 p.m. So let's wait for some time. And again, the expectation, the code which we have written, it's a very simple code just to demonstrate that which part of the Apex class is going to be executed, and that is just an execute method. It seems there are some chat messages. Sumant, you are right. I have not used the right time zone. That's fine. Let me see if I have this job. So schedule Apex was aborted. It is going to be scheduled. Meantime, what I will do is I will correct my time zone to avoid the confusion. User path to code. Let's go. It's GMT -5. GMT -4. New York. So now, if I go on my job page again, and there is a very interesting use case also I have to explain, and I will exactly show you why. There is one pattern, basically very interesting one. So it says started, next schedule, still have not finished yet. (9:15). So that is one thing about the asynchronous Apex, or anything in Salesforce which says is going to be run asynchronously, either it's time-based workflow or it's outbound messages or anything. Normally, Salesforce club those jobs together and then it submits to the queue. So it is not necessarily that it will be executed in exactly that same minute, but few minutes here and there, and Salesforce will make sure to execute it. One thing I need to show here, right? So now we can see that this class is marked as scheduler, which is this job. If I want to change, instead of warehouse, let's say I'm saying the site is in Dallas, maybe the city name instead of the warehouse or something. Or let's say I'm saying Atlanta, I'm trying to save it. So this error at the bottom is the problem. So in the audience, if anybody can chat and suggest what is the workaround to this problem. Does anyone know in the audience? Anything we can do to avoid this problem? Salesforce is not allowing me to change this Apex class because there is job pending on this one. That really makes a sense, right? You should not be updating code while the job in the background is already waiting to be executed. But this problem is going to be always happen with the scheduler. How we are going to resolve this? So this is the error. One suggestion came from Sumant as a handler class. Good one. Let's see. Anyone else? So now as we can see, account site got updated. That means our code is really working. And if you go on job page, Apex job, it shows that schedule Apex is still queued. That is interesting. If I go on my schedule job page, it still says next run 9. So it will, I guess it will take some time to reflect that scheduler already executed. Now tomorrow it will run. No, in fact, it is right saying. So it's saying that we submitted at 5:15, that's today. Started on 5:15, 9:15, that's today. Next run is tomorrow at 9:15. So that means all the information is on the same page, right? Now there is a hanging question here, right? That how to resolve this problem. And we will come to this problem towards the end of the session. Okay. So this is one way to do it. So let me document here on the comment itself. So two types of Apex execution. Apex execution mode. One is synchronous Apex and one is asynchronous Apex. If we talk about synchronous Apex, the examples of the synchronous Apex are Lightning controller or Visualforce page controller or the triggers. These are all synchronous Apex. If we talk about asynchronous Apex, the example is future, any class which is marked as an add future. Amit already covered in the previous session. Then queuable, and then if you see scheduler, and the best for the last is batch Apex. Okay. So future we know, queuable we know. If you have any question, feel free to ask a question. I'm ready to handle these again, no problem. Scheduler we just covered. Let's talk about batch Apex, and then we will come back on this error, that how this error can be resolved. Okay. Now let's assume that this is exactly same problem we need to solve using batch Apex. How we are going to do it? So I will create a new Apex class and I will say batch Apex demo. Now one thing to hear, right? So your experienced developer, architect, or maybe someone when you're having a group meeting, right, or just a non-candid conversation, someone might ask you a question, hey, why would you want to use asynchronous Apex compared to synchronous Apex? Now there are multiple answers, but these are my thumb rule. When I decide that I need to use asynchronous, number one, if I need a larger governor limit, so basically, let's take an example. I need a CPU time limit of, let's say 1 minute. By default, the CPU time limit is 10 seconds on the synchronous Apex. How many DMLs I can do? How many SQL query I can issue? So that's the number one. Any heavyweight code I have, I will use either one of these four. Okay. 2. Again, there is some background processing. User don't need to worry about it, or huge logic, some algorithm. I will still use the asynchronous apex. Okay. One of the design pattern, again, even if you see the Salesforce out of the box field service lightning component managed package, or let's say CPQ managed package. One thing which I have seen in those managed packages are if you are using Apex based sharing, so sharing a record on the basis of Apex rule, normally that piece we write asynchronously. So these are some thumb rule. If anybody is asking you in an interview or any your friend that, hey, how to take a decision on using synchronous versus asynchronous, the major decision factor here is the governor limits. You get a huge governor limit. But again, like I always says, with big responsibility or big power comes a great responsibility. Same way, if you are using asynchronous apex, there are some problem. And one of the biggest problem is the log or the error handling, because it executes in the background silently. In the same way, either it success in the background silently or it breaks or fails in the background silently, and you need to have a proper framework around that. So long story here, we already have a batch apex, right? Let me start some comment here. We'll say description is demo of batch apex. So again, even in the batch apex, so we always talk about, right, what is the importance, how the Salesforce will know. So think about it, even in the scheduler, if Salesforce does not give the implement execute or implement schedule level, this, if there is nothing is like this, what are you guys going, what are we going to write? Are we going to say public void start? How the Salesforce will know what they have to execute? Or we have to say public void first method or something, right? That is the problem. So interfaces are integral part of any programming language, where the platforms like Salesforce knows that I believe my partner, developer or architect or whoever has implemented the execute method. I don't need to worry. All I have to do is call an execute method and everything would be taken care by the Salesforce platform. Same way in the batch apex. Now batch apex is divided into 3 parts. And what is the part? No need to worry. All you have to worry about is remember this interface name. And Sumant, thank you so much. The interface name is right. It's a database dot batchable. And you have to say for which custom object you are writing. So a standard object, I'm saying, okay, this batch apex is for account. Okay. Or the best part, you can always have S object, like we discussed in second or third session, that S object is the parent object of everything. So let's try to save it. If I try to save it here, let's see what is the error. Okay, keyword implements. Let's try again. Now you can see batch must implement a method named start, execute, and finish. So you don't have to worry about the syntax. Let compiler give you an error. All you have to remember is the interface name. So we have 3 methods. Let's resolve these last 3 errors one by one. So first error we have to resolve is start method. So I will have public, I will have database dot, either you can have iterable. If you know the batch apex, you can have a return type as something like this. And then the start method again, this is a, so same way in the scheduler execute method, if you see, we have a schedulable context. Same way we have here database dot batchable context. Batchable context. Okay, so if you see, one error is already gone. I will come back again and I will inform what exactly is this one. Then basically what we have to do is we have to return database dot get query locator. So basically what this get query locator does is we have to write a query here. Let's say something like this. So any batch apex has a three part: start, execute, and finish. Execute is similar to what schedulable we saw. Execute means what this batch apex needs to do. The question is on how many records. Now your OR may have millions of record. The schedulable, so here is the one problem in the scheduler. This one method is one transaction. If you are planning to work like 20,000 record, 30,000 record, no problem, go ahead. But what if you want to work on more than millions of record? There are tons of governor limit error that we may encounter in the scheduler because this is only one method. Even if the CPU time is 60 seconds, even if there is some more heap memory, but still there is a limit. Okay, we have, so in case of the scenario where we have millions of record, we have to divide our work in a chunks, like in a batch. So instead of writing everything in the same, so here in scheduler, this execute will execute only one time. Wouldn't it be great if I can tell Salesforce that I need to run this method for 200 records each or 2000 records each? So I don't have to worry about the governor limit. So one level, so scheduler is level 1. The one level above the scheduler, which gives you more power, more flexibility, the more the data you have, the more complexity you have, batch apex is going to help you here. So start method in batch will tell how many record you want to process. Is it million? All you have to do is just write your query. So I will say select ID from account. So now what will happen is this batch apex will only execute on all the account exist in the system. Now I have to tell them that, okay, we need an execute method. So in the execute method, again, we need to give them same context. Again, we don't have to provide anything. Salesforce internally will execute it. The second and the most important parameter here is what you are going to work on. So I'm saying, hey, I need to work on the list of account. And who will give the list of account? Salesforce internally will give it. So I'm saying something like this, list of account. Okay. If I try to save it, that error is gone. Now the last method I have to implement is public void finish. Same way, we have to provide the database batchable context. And most of the time, this can be empty, or you can call another batch apex from the finish. So see, this is the great flexibility batch apex is giving us. Let's see, unexpected. Okay, so all error is gone. So basically, very simple, batch apex implements batchable. How many records you're going to process, you have to write here. I'm saying, okay, I'm going to process every account. You can have conditional statement here. What Salesforce will do, Salesforce will divide this, let's say this is a millions of records. Salesforce will divide it in 200 record or 2000 record, depending on how we execute the batch apex. And then at the finish, we can either this method would be empty or you call another batch apex. Now what I'm going to do is, I am going to do exactly same like this. The only difference is I don't need to query this one because it is already in a start method. List of account is already here. So for all the list of account, I am saying update them, let's say batch house. That's it. And again, variable name right here. Perfect. So now, if you can see here, start method will get all the record. Let's say thousands of record. The thousands of record would be divided into small batch. So execute method would be executed continuously, and every execute method will have their fresh governor limits. That is the huge advantage. So each execute method is fresh governor limits. That's the huge advantage. And let's try to run. Now the question is, how can we run this? So again, running a batch Apex is very easy. All you have to use is system.batchable, and you have to provide a scope. So what I will do is like this. So here is the thing. Let's go back on my account. Account site is warehouse. Let me clear all the log. I have few logs here. I will debug. I will say clear log panel. Log panel is gone. I will go ahead here and I will say database dot execute batch. So first parameter is we have to pass the object. Either we can declare a variable here saying that obj equals to new, or I can simply here say new, because all we have to provide is an object. That's all. Now here is the magic going to happen. Before that, let me go on the query editor and let me show you the count. Select count of account. So select count from account. I'm writing in the query editor. So there are 37 accounts in my system. So let me say that I want to process 10 accounts at a time. You can have a batch size till 2000. Salesforce will accept it. Okay. Now what will happen is these 37 accounts would be updated in the 4 batch. So first 3 batch have a 10 record, but the last batch will have a 7th record. And let's see how. So if just to show the live here, if you see the log section is empty here. I am saying execute highlighted. Keep watching here. 1 batch. So 1 batch, 2nd batch, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 5. We will see anyways. So let's see, open the raw log here. And if you go at the end, what it is doing is it actually just started the batch. Okay. The reason its file is coming up because there is a finish. I think it's doing one for start method. And if I open this one raw log, you can see that it says it updated 26 DML rows. I think the log is exactly not what I'm looking for. However, you will get an idea that we started on 1 batch Apex. It divided it into the multiple batches. So it says that DML 26 happened, maybe a recursive trigger or something in this org. If I open this log, you can see 2 DML operation, DML rows. Now, one thing important in debugging Salesforce, whenever we are writing a code, this cumulative limit usage is lifesaver. When I want to see my debug log, the first thing I always do is I get my cursor at the bottom of the code, and first thing I see is the debug log, saying that what is the governor limit they have used. Here you can see the quality of code instantly. I have issued only 1 SQL out of 200. Now that's the beauty. It's asynchronous, that is the reason it's a 200, otherwise the limit is 100. In synchronous Apex, you can only have a 100 SQL. You can have out of 50,000 rows, we got 16 rows. SOSL, we did not use, we used 2 DML out of 150. We can update 10,000 record, or we can do the DML of 10,000 record in the single transaction. We did 16. This is the best part. So out of 60 seconds, I only used 9 milliseconds. So this is the best part. If you are writing any code, after writing, you are doing performance testing or whatever the testing, make sure you are coming down here and see if there is any anomaly here. You see if something's spiking up and fix it. So if I go back on my account and if I reload something like this, batch house, everything is awesome. Let me go on job, Apex job, sorry, yep. Apex job, it is saying that we want schedule Apex. I'm not sure why it is still showing queued. It should be actually completed our schedule Apex, but our batch. So here, so like I said, there are 4 batches. I'm not sure why the log is not showing the right information, but here the information, 1 batch Apex, there was total 4 batches and 4 process. So that's all about the batch. Take a look, few minutes and see what we did here. Now the interesting scenario I'm going to share with all of you. Give me 1 minute. Perfect. Okay. Few things I want to show all of you, but before that, let me break it. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, so recently, I mean, most of the multiple time, right? You join a project code already written by someone else, right? You're just joining in maybe by your team member, by maybe some other vendors, and the code quality is really not good. So what happened in one of my project is, it's a long project. I mean, that project was going through the last 3 years. I joined on the 4th year. Now I cannot change the whole project on the day 1 or the first month. I have to improvise somehow a little bit. So what happened is, that project was using batch Apex like a crazy. See, there has to be a balance. Batch Apex is never a right on all answer in the first attempt. If you want to execute a method only once, why would you use a batch Apex? I see some developers saying, oh, it doesn't matter anyways, it's not going to harm. Instead of writing an execute method in scheduler, we will simply write a batch Apex. No, there are complications. Always try. So first thing, do not try to use a future, because queuable interface is a lot better than future. It has everything what future has. So normally I have not written a single future method in the last few years. So first preference, always give it to queuable. Queuable works, great. If queuable doesn't work, then see if the batch Apex is going to work. Now the question is, why I'm not talking about the scheduler. Normally we use a scheduler to launch a batch Apex. So normal thing is not just I did. The normal thing is something like this. So scheduler, instead of writing an execute method, right? Scheduler 80% of time executes the batch Apex, because scheduler is asynchronous. You want to have a heavy operation, do the heavy operation in the batch Apex. Yeah. So anyways, coming back to the batch Apex code, this was what someone did in my project, something like this. Okay, not exactly the scenario, but let me try to produce an error for all of you so that you will understand. There was a piece of code, multiple places. So let's say 4 or 5 triggers, right? 4 or 5 controllers. They were using batch Apex like crazy, and eventually the effect was something like this. We are planning to execute our batch Apex 200 times, and let me try if that is going to work. So see exactly what happened. If I go on my governor limit page, if I go my flex queue, okay, no, async as you have limited 100 jobs in the flex queue. So basically it is giving me an error that at a time I can only have 100 job in my flex queue. If I go on Apex jobs, so let me try this. So I will have 80 job. Okay, I don't see any issue here. You can have 100 job at any time. So if I go on my flex queue, you can see I have around 25. So around 75. I started 80. Salesforce executes 5 batches at a time, and it keeps 100 batch in a queue, right? So that's awesome. That's fine. If you do the control E again, now I'm getting a problem. The problem is you have a limit of only 100 batches at a time. Why you're scheduling so many batches? right? So I had to overcome this problem that how, so that is a one problem. Apex Flex queue's capacity is only 100. Okay. Now there is existing code in your org. You cannot stop those code to using a batch Apex because that is going to take some time, maybe few weeks to go back on their code, refactor it, regression testing and everything, go through the whole life cycle. What I did is, and I just recently published on my blog, framework to fix governor limit of 100 jobs in the flex queue. So this is the open source. You go ahead. So basically it's a very simple. All I did is a custom object. I am checking if there is a 100 batch already there. If yes, insert them in the custom object, keep inserting a custom object. And there is another scheduler which runs every 10 minutes and which keeps executing the batch. So this is something which I have used in my many of the project. This is the, I mean, I published this article pretty late, but this is something I am using for a long time. Now, last thing I want to show to all of you is this problem. So whenever you have any scheduler in your org, let me clear the log first. If I have a problem, let's assume that I want to execute my batch from scheduler. I am trying to save it, but I would not be. Why? Because this error would be always here. So how to fix this? So first step you have to do is, first of all, go to schedule job and delete it. Next. Now, what we will do is copy this implements schedulable. And I think Sumant already answered this, but still I will explain again that and give a little bit focus that what exactly I'm doing and what concept is going to save me now. Is it abstract class, it's interface or what? So I'm saying proxy scheduler is my class name. And I'm saying implements, I already have that one. And I will copy this error and I will add a comment here. Let's say fix error. Let's save it. If I try to save it, you can see what is the error I'm getting at the bottom. It says class proxy scheduler must implement the method, but I don't want to implement it. So what I will do is I will say public, I will say abstract class. So abstract class can have unimplemented method. We all know. So it's saved. Now in my actual scheduler, instead of saying implement, I'm going to use the inheritance concept. I will say extend proxy scheduler. Right? Now, what I'm going to do here is the scheduler demo I have, I will say something like this. So I will say scheduler demo, proxy scheduler is the parent class, right? And in the parent class, you can keep the child class. If you remember, this is the second or the third episode of the path to code. Go ahead, go back again if you have a little bit confusion. And you can see there. So basically, in case of inheritance, we can instantiate a child class. So scheduler dim is a child class, but I'm putting it in the proxy scheduler object. And proxy scheduler basically implements schedulable interface. Now, let's try it. If I go back on my schedule job, my schedule job is here, everything is here. If I go back on my developer console, and now I write system.debug. Hey there. Wait, why it is giving an error? Wait. It really should not give any error because I'm using it for the long time. Something like this. You have abstract class. Let's try and delete this. Go back here. I have a proxy scheduler. Yep, all I did is right. I'm doing exactly like I'm doing in my framework. Okay, Yuvraj is saying maybe because the class name is same. Let me try scheduler demo 2. I don't think scheduler demo 2 should make any issue. Let's see. So if I say, oh, the error is batch apex demo. Oh. If you see, the error is because of the batch apex, not the scheduler actually. Let me see if this works. So you see the batch, we cannot make any modification in the batch apex. That's fine. Let me, you like to close without saving? Yes. Let me try to execute highlighted. If it still doesn't work, then we'll try a new class. And this apex scheduler demo is giving a problem. Scheduler demo 2, if I use, again, same problem. Schedule job, delete it again. It should not. Okay. So proxy scheduler is there, which is an abstract class. It implements schedulable. And scheduler demo 2. Okay, so that happens when you do the live coding. I am not sure why this is giving a problem. It should not, because we are using our project. So what I will do is let me go back, see what exactly is the issue, and I will post on Twitter or somewhere. So let's open for the Q&A. Anyone have any question on synchronous apex versus asynchronous apex, or maybe future queuable scheduler batch apex? Okay, so I don't see any question from anyone.
Quick question, Jitendra Sumant here. I missed last week's class. I don't see the recording. Do you know when it will be available?
I will try to have in 1 or 2 days, a month.
No worries. Yeah, just wanted to make sure. Yeah, I'm currently, I have to refresh about future and queuable, so that class would really help me.
Sure. So yeah, just one liner, right? The future and queuable both are similar. There was some problem in the future, like you cannot track the process, you cannot pass the complex data types, and that is the reason queuable came into the picture. So queuable will solve almost all of your problem. If you get a chance, always use a queuable. But yeah, I will publish that YouTube video, previous class, so that you can go back and you can see.
Great,
Okay?
thank you.
So if we see our lineup, right? So next session would be by me on the Wednesday. That is the design pattern. Again, I think it is going to be pretty important. And then we have 3 more sessions related to the design pattern. We are planning to remove session 25 and 24. Doesn't make sense to cover 24 because everybody is moving away from and because Salesforce DX is the future. And Salesforce DX, we almost actually covered somewhere in episode 10 or something where we covered the basics of the VS Code. So what we will do is after episode 23, we will have 24th episode only on the Q&A, like whatever anything you want to discuss. If any one of you have any topic, feel free to let me know, right? If you want to add any topic here. And after that, what we are thinking is there is going to be 3 or 4 sessions on the MuleSoft. So like Path to series is going to wrap up maybe on the 24th episode, and after that there would be like another series on the MuleSoft only. Okay.
Yeah, Jitendra, quick question, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you showed how to invoke batchable, schedulable classes from using another class. But what if we have a trigger that invokes it? Can we use it? Can we do the same from a trigger?
Very good question, right? So you should never invoke batch apex from trigger. However, you can, technical question, can we do it? Answer, yes, we can. The question, should we do it? I will say no. So what we should do is, let me see here. Perfect. So from the trigger, try to invoke queuable. Because see, what is the best size of trigger? The maximum record any trigger can process is 200. You don't need a batch apex for the 200 record, right? You need a queuable. So always try to invoke queuable from trigger and try to invoke only one queuable from one trigger, because trigger is in the bulkified. So make sure your code to invoke queuable is also bulkified. Good question.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks.
Any other question? Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And I'm again really sorry. It was a technical hiccup. Still, Jigar is not able to join, but I'm glad I was able to help all of you. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.